Ladies and gentlemen, Laurie Cardozo-Moore with Proclaiming Justice to the Nations. And yesterday was the International Holocaust Remembrance Day, where people around the world, both Jews and Christians, all remember that fateful time in history. And a lot of times I hear from people who ask the question, if the Jews or if Israel is God's chosen people, why would God have allowed that incident to happen? And although that is a very good question about why, I want to share with you from the scriptures what God told the prophets. Because remember, ladies and gentlemen, there were warning signs. Herzl, Jabotinsky, all tried to warn the Jews about what was coming to Europe. But Ezekiel, the prophet, also had a word, and it's been with us because remember, nothing happens without the prophets being told first. But Ezekiel was warned, and if you turn to chapter 37, verse 1, I want to share this with you because this is important. It's the valley of dry bones. Many of you have heard that term before. But it says, "The hand of the Lord was upon me. It took me out by the Spirit of the Lord and set me down in the midst of the valley, and it was filled with bones. He passed me over them all around, and behold, they were very numerous upon the face of the valley, and behold, they were very dry. Then he said to me, Son of man, can these bones come to life? And I said, Lord Elohim, you know. He said to me, Prophesy over these bones, and say to them, O dry bones, hear the word of the Lord. Thus said the Lord Elohim to these bones, Behold, I bring a spirit into you, and you will come to life. I will put sinews upon you, I will bring up flesh upon you, and I will coat you with skin. Then I will put a spirit into you, and you will come to life. Then you will know that I am the Lord. So I prophesied as I had been commanded. There was a sound as I was prophesying. Then behold, there was a noise, and the bones drew near, each bone to its matching bone. Then I looked, and behold, upon them were sinews, and flesh had come up, and skin had covered them over, but there was no spirit in them. Then he said to me, Prophesy to the spirit, prophesy, O Son of man, and say to the spirit, Thus said the Lord Elohim, Come from the 4 directions, O spirit, and blow into these slain people, that they may come to life. I prophesied as I had been commanded, and the Spirit entered them, and they came to life. They stood upon their feet, a very, very great legion. He said to me, Son of man, these bones, they are the whole house of Israel. Behold, they are saying, Our bones are dried out, and our hope is lost. We are doomed. Therefore prophesy, and say to them, Behold, I am opening your graves and raising you up from your graves, my people, and I will bring you to the soil of Israel. Then you will know that I am the Lord, when I open your graves and when I raise you up from your graves, my people, and when I put my spirit into you and you come to life, and I set you on your soil. Then you will know that I, the Lord, have spoken, and I have fulfilled the word of the Lord. This prophecy that was spoken to Ezekiel way before these events ever occurred. And if you listen to those verses and go back and read them, look at the parallels about the Holocaust, the Valley of Dry Bones. We remember the images. We see them in books, we see photographs, we see films of these bones. But what is the key thing here? Is that he's going to put skin back on those bones. Those bones are going to come to life. And what will happen next? He's going to bring them to Israel. And look at what happened, ladies and gentlemen. After that horrific event in history, where mankind stood by, I asked the question in our documentary film, The Forgotten People, Christianity in the Holocaust, how could Christians, because remember, Germany at that time was a Judeo-Christian nation. It was the nation that gave rise to the Protestant or the Reformation movement. It was an educated nation. It was a wealthy nation. So where was the church? Why did they stand by? God is bringing Israel back to the land. He has not forgotten his people, whom mankind dismissed and allowed to go to be led like lambs to their slaughter. But God is going to judge the nations and those who persecuted the Jewish people and even those who stood by, because we're also reminded in the book of Abadia, in verse 15, this is one chapter. In verse 15, this is the section of this chapter that talks about God's retribution, that God would pour out his wrath on the nations because they were dividing up his land. He would pour out his wrath on the nations because they stood by while their brother Jacob was held in captivity and they did nothing. We are living at a very difficult time in world history, as we too, even Christians, people of faith, Jews and Christians, are being targeted once again because of that faith. And ultimately, ladies and gentlemen, that's why the Jews were led to the slaughter, because mankind hated Israel's God. They didn't want to live by God's rules and his commandments. And the people, the Jewish people, were an ever-present reminder of the one true God. So ladies and gentlemen, as you gather with your family and you hug them tight and pray with them, tell your children this story, that God forbid this ever happen, that mankind stand by and allow not just the Jews to be slaughtered, but the Christians as well. God forbid the judgment that will come upon the nations who allow that to happen, just as he has said in his word. So I want to thank all of you for your prayers and your support of PJTN. You make everything that we do possible as we stand and educate Christians around the world about our biblical responsibility to stand with our Jewish brethren and Israel during this very difficult season, and that we might pass those truths, those biblical truths, to our children from generation to generation. God bless you and thank you for all you do on behalf of our Jewish brethren and all Israel.